9631 9696. 099619.
Hi, just 1 second.
I know it. It's the last minute tweaking that always. I could
No,
handle
I've been
everything
ready.
else, but the last minute tweaking gives me like I could have a nervous breakdown
No, that's fine. It's
because
fine.
Raquel. Let me close the door. Raquel set it up, and she didn't realize that that it meant um, every time we generate a meeting, there's a new ID.
Yeah.
So she had initially used the old one when she gave me the information. So I'm like,
Right.
yeah, this thing is not letting me log on. It says it's not valid. She goes, I paid for the meeting and everything. And then I'm checking and I go, I see what it is.
Right, because sometimes you have to change it. So all kinds of little dramas happen. That's why I said, we'll start a little bit earlier, just in case we have any, but that's no problem. But then, of course, you now find yourself in a difficulty because then other people can't join in. Because the
I've just
idea
posted for anyone who would like to view.
I should actually do that as well.
Here is the new ID. So, okay, here we go. Let me put my phone on mute.
Yes. Just 1 second, my dear, as well. It's all the little bits and bobs. That's okay. That's what life is about. It's what gives us all this excitement.
And I have my own anxiety before every single interview I do because I'm never comfortable. I always.
Why?
I get nervous every single time.
You get nervous? What about?
Are you kidding me? Every single time. It's like I don't know. It's like morning sickness. I get the nausea. I get
really?
I
You
feel
have
like
to worry about that with me at all.
I feel like I'm bloating. I feel like I'm about to pass out. I get giddy. I get woozy. It's just a matter of time before I'm
So
talking to
listen,
somebody on
you're
camera
doing
and I
so.
just go,
No. Okay, so what I mean, like I say, what might make you feel better is think of how the interviewee is feeling.
I don't care.
You take,
I
you
am
know
too
that happens to people who are perfectionists, you know.
Yeah. I was interviewing Wendy Fitzwilliam years ago, and
Yeah.
beforehand we were sitting on the set, and I said, thank you, Miss Fitzwilliam, and she goes, please call me Wendy. I'm like, are you kidding me? My mother is watching this show. She will literally call in during the commercial break and go, is Wendy your friend? Have some
Wendy,
respect.
you know how it works. You know how it works. It's like, Wendy, your
Yeah.
friend. Oh, but no, this is fine. I'm super easygoing, so we're gonna have fun.
Yes.
Gonna have fun, and we start at 12. Yeah. So yeah, how is it? What is weather like in New York City?
It's disgusting.
What?
It's the humidity. The humidity is what really just but people always go, why are you so uncomfortable? Isn't it hot where you come from? I go, yes, but it's not like this. You literally feel that you are walking in snow. You feel the air. You feel the air.
I know what you
it's
mean.
like you're in water.
I know what you mean. There's always there's humidity, like in the UK as well, because you have to remember, no matter what, in Trinidad we're on an island and we always seem to be able to get some breeze. Yeah, and the humidity I think feels different to even in the UK or even in the States. And I guess New York is a city with all those huge buildings, so you could imagine.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the next thing. It's like people think that it is our tech person is now panicking because we were panicking.
Why is panicking? Don't panic. What they're panicking about? Tell me.
No, because I said, listen, there is no the link isn't working. And then they said, oh, okay, but we see what's going on and whatnot. But so yeah. So today joining us. I'm just giving the information to Tiffany, our
sure.
So she can send this out. Like I said, that
sure. But I'm trying to do it myself as well.
I posted on all my social media so that everyone who was going to join could see it, because people said they wanted to tune in to see it. And
yeah.
And I'm trying. We have 4 minutes. Good. Yay.
Yeah, let's go for it. Don't panic. Don't panic on anything. Don't panic. It happens. Trying to just send it off myself to help you.
It's interesting how people pop on and pop off, and like they're so familiar with what to do that they just check in on this and see what's going on, and then so it's nice. I mean, I don't know if you could see it. That's the part I don't know about, but I can,
yeah. Yeah, I can see it. And then what happened is my dad has become quite good at it, because during COVID-19, different little meetings and things that we were having. So he's now very good at it. But I had to make sure and tell him, when you're starting it, take the video off, because you're kind of there looking, what's going on?
Could you introduce him to my mother? Because I'm still trying to get her to learn how to text.
Oh, no, he can. He's good at WhatsApp, and he's also very good at doing very strange on the family group voice messages.
You see, I can't.
No, but he'll be happy to help your mom. But we have to try and do it where it's easier for her, so she can have a little voice message.
Yeah.
And speak with. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. It's nice. But it makes life easier.
Her perspective is she has this thing where she says, if you're texting, then you won't call. and I say,
she's right.
Yeah.
She's right. She's right. She's right. And I'll tell you something that happened. There often many times I found myself, and I'm trying to break out of it. I'd send a text to someone. I go, oh, they're not answering. Oh, they haven't read the text. And I stop for a second and think, well, hello, call. I don't call. And why are they not answering the text? That happens with Raquel and I as well. Let me add this to my story and put this up as well. There we go. Have some fun there. Yeah. So it's great. It's sometimes you have to be able to remember to call each other, and I quite like Zoom because it allows you to see each other and have a chat, and so it's good.
Very true. Very, very, very true.
So I like to see people. I find technology just so.
When we first started talking about this, I remember Raquel and I were discussing setting up something, and at the time they made it sound as if that this whole situation was so temporary. I said, well, I don't know if we should, because it's going to go back to what it should be or could be. And then television stations started doing things using Zoom, and I was like, this is interesting,
Yeah.
So it's the new normal.
It's the new normal. It's the new normal. And in Trinidad right now, we're very worried and panicking because we're seeing a community cluster. There's so many different words for different things. So so some people, for example, I did an interview, a radio interview, and I'd gone in and I was one of the first guests to go in, and I mean we still social distance and things like that, but I don't know now with this new development whether it may just go back to being on Zoom and these kinds of things, which is fine once you have good internet connection.
Well, that's the thing. That is the main
and by
thing.
And by me when it rains. I live opposite a bamboo patch, right?
Listen, so
all kinds of things happen. All kinds of things. So, but anyway.
It's now 12 noon.
Yes.
And I will switch into, professional mood.
No stressing. We're going to have fun.
Everyone. Thank you for joining us to view. My name is Nalan Hunt. I am with Win Media News here in New York, and we try to focus as much as possible on bringing you news of the diaspora from outside of it, but also looking at what's going on within it in each endemic location. So today's guest is Mikela Panday, attorney, political party leader of the Patriotic Front. Mikela, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
How is your Sunday going so far?
Nice and quiet. Hoping that the internet, because we're having a bit of bad weather, so hoping that the internet doesn't give up on me. But yes, it's going very well.
Everyone who is viewing, just be aware that there are glitches. It's technology. It is not perfect because we expect so much when we talk about technology, but we don't realize that technology still is at the mercy of a lot of extraneous things going on that we have no control over.
Correct.
One of the things I wanted to talk with you about is, of course, general elections have been called in Trinidad and Tobago. August the 10th, that's a week and a day from today.
It is.
And
it is.
You released a statement saying that your political party was not going to be participating.
Correct.
What was the driving force behind that decision? Because I know it's not one that one would take lightly, given all the work that goes into preparing for an election.
And it was a very difficult decision, but one that had to be made thinking about the party without ego, without fear, and to really think about the future. Of course, what had happened was we were for quite some time, even at the beginning of the year and for a bit last year, we were talking to other political parties. I don't like to use the word smaller, let's perhaps use the word newer. So new political parties, and we were chatting, and obviously as you look to see if you could find some kind of accommodation. And then of course we got the situation come up with the COVID-19 pandemic. And time just started to go by. And we still said, look, let's every decision we make must be in best interest of the country. So I said, okay. And then what had happened was, we had a press conference on this Thursday, the 24th or the 25th, forgive me, I can't remember the date. And in just under a week, the Prime Minister then announced that he was going to hold the general election on August 10th. And that wasn't the worry so much, or the concern was the deadline for the nomination day, which was some 2 weeks that we would have had in the bag. And of course, what we decided to do immediately after that, I said, all right, well, there are people who have put up their nominations to become candidates who are expecting to be screened. There were people who were volunteering, you had supporters, and people needed to voice their concerns, and were trying to do things differently in the party. And by that, I mean, to actually just communicate with people and say, well, listen, what do you think we should do? Mm-hmm. As opposed to just a small group of people sitting down in a room making a decision for everybody else. So yeah, we met with people for that week, and ultimately I had to make the decision, and I thought it through, listened to the different opinions, and I thought for the party that would be the best. And of course, what's important is the party wasn't formed just for this reason. Mm-hmm. And I think that was also a very important factor. The party wasn't formed just so that we will fight 2020 general elections. We have seen that happen in the past, where parties are formed for that sole reason, and after the election, you never hear them again. And that's not our intention. So we're here to stay, and therefore, whatever decision that would have been made just had to be made in the best interest of the party.
What I found interesting, and I've heard people speak about, is if I'm not mistaken, there are about 10 parties right now that have been formed in the country. And it's interesting because what, as you said, some people form parties to tackle the general election, and then some people have a more long-term goal. It's interesting that there is so much interest. One of the things I find interesting about a general election is that so many times the electorate feels overwhelmed, they feel underinformed, and somewhat, like a sort of throw your hands up in the air situation, because they feel, you know what, and you hear this all the time, I'm very sure, I'm assuming, why bother, because, it's not going to change. One of the things I think that the electorate doesn't understand, and the general person in the street, they don't understand how an election works. It's, could you guide me through not so much just a general election, but the run-up, on a local level, how people need to understand how important it is that every step leading up to a general election is as, if not sometimes, more important. Explain to people how they can get involved in their politics,
but
and know what they're doing.
I think it's when you see in the run-up, that must mean from the moment you win to the next election, or from the moment you come second, third, or fourth till the next election. And I think that's what the problem is. And this is why we have people think, well, it's not going to make a difference. Nothing is going to change. The way that campaigning is done in this country, I think, is one of the first problems that we have. Is about music and flag waving and mudslinging when they have the peacock and during on the platforms, and very, very little tends to be, if any, focused on policy. And I think that is important. The problem is, and I know this word is being bandied around quite a bit, but people do not feel empowered. And therefore what happens to them is they feel that I have this one moment every 5 years in which I have a voice.
Right.
And during that time, so okay, many come out to vote, but a lot of people say, even though I have that one moment in 5 years, it absolutely makes no difference, because there is no representation that's going to be taking place afterwards. We don't have a say afterwards. We can't get in contact with our representatives afterwards. So what use does it make? And I think that that's incorrect. And you had brought up something when you said local, it popped into my head. Local government election, which is held every 3 years, is a very important thing that nobody seems to put too much focus on.
Right.
To me, in a way, that affects the average citizen more than, on a personal basis, more than general election, which talks about economic and fiscal policy and all these kinds of things. But we're talking about things that affect you. Your schools, your roads, drainage, sanitation, these kinds of things. And people can get involved, but I think the reality is, before we say anything else, people have become so disenchanted. And I'm not sure if it's just in Trinidad, throughout the world.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion globally that people are now talking about, as you said, about how important local elections are. There's a series on Netflix that Hassan Minaj hosts,
yes,
and he presented how an election takes place here in the US. And it was really interesting to understand how the decisions are made with regard to a general election. And he too highlighted the fact that there is so much focus on the general election that people don't understand that the voice that they have, that they can use,
it's really in
can
local.
Be done through their representative, and that their representatives are way more accessible than, let's say, Congress or the White House. Because of course, you
Correct.
know, your representative,
your counselor, we call it in Trinidad,
your counselor is representative of, let's say, 10,000 people in a particular area, whereas your government is representative of 1.3 million people.
Right.
And that's so much harder. So how
Correct.
does someone avail themselves of getting their representative to advocate effectively on their behalf?
The first thing that we have to do, and this is why local government reform is so important, the first thing we have to do is the actual councillor or representative, as you have put it, need to know what their role and responsibility is. So we have to go all the way back, because we find so many people going up for this position. Oh, it doesn't matter. So I'm popular in the area. So, I'll go up, or some sort of thing like that. And what happens is, they don't know what their boundaries are. They don't know their roles and responsibility. They don't know what the powers that they themselves have. And that is throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We have 16 corporations, or 16 corporations. And if you go to do a survey and go throughout and ask councillors in Trinidad and Tobago, so how is it? Tell me, how is it that you within the Burgesses, the area that you control, what is your role, responsibility? What powers, for example, that you have? And I think you'd be very surprised that many of them don't know. And therefore, and also, we have to set up proper offices for councillors so that people can actually go. So we're talking about the machinery itself has fallen flat on its face, because, as you very well said, everything is about local government, general elections. Every single thing is about general elections. The good thing about local government is that you can vote outside party, because you're not going to lose government.
People don't understand that.
You will therefore say, I am voting for the best person who will represent my community. So every constituency has a roundabout figure, in Trinidad, about 25,000 people, 25, 26, around there. And then when I was an MP for the constituency of Oropouche West, we had 3 councillors. So you're almost dividing that itself into 3. So they are more accessible, but they need to have an office.
Yes. So
they
where
need
are they
to say what
operating
their
now?
Office did.
When you say that they need to have an office, where are they operating from if they don't have an official office?
Underneath their house, in the rum shop.
No.
Yes. Yes. All kinds of things. If you own one, you can close it off one day and let people come in. And so yes, I can tell you from personal experience.
Yeah.
That I know it's in, they don't have that. So they're not given the level of support. And every time any government comes into power, they never talk about local government reform. They never talk about local government reform. And local government is so important to improving the everyday lives of people. But then again, I say, ask how many people in Trinidad and Tobago, anywhere, who is your councillor?
Yeah.
Many times they don't know who the MP is, but who is your councillor? Something is bothering you. Okay, when you look at simple environmental, local environmental issues that are happening, somebody has a chicken farm, it shouldn't be there. Basic little things.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know who their councillor is. So we need to revamp the system. There's no one speaking out about that. And I think that our party can do that. I don't think you need to be in power to do that. I don't think, I've been in opposition, and I describe myself as a beggar in a tie. It becomes very hard. It's very hard to do things. I think outside you can do things, and insist that conversations start being had about important things such as local government.
What do you think?
And general, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. What do you think is the government role and the first thing they should do with regard to local government reform? What's their main responsibility right now? Sunday, the 2nd of August, 2020.
Where do you begin? I tell you what has happened, and they've had lots of, help me with the word for it, consultation.
Yeah.
I don't know who they're consulting with. So I think probably, if it were me, the system itself and how, even though you don't have to change it because you may need constitutional reform and things, but to make sure the system as it is functions. Mm-hmm. The system as it currently is. I'll give you an example. I remember when I was an MP, every last Thursday in the month, there was something called a statutory committee meeting, of which MPs were entitled to go to. So because you don't want to be getting too much involved in local government business, but it's nice sometimes so that you can work together. Yes. And you'll be able to see and do the best to the people. And very often I didn't find that was very productive. There's never any answer. Which roads need to be fixed, and how are we deciding which roads need to be fixed? Maybe we need to begin with something like accountability and transparency within the system that we already have, without trying to reinvent the wheel. Maybe that's what we need to do. But the reality is it does not function. Mm-hmm. So maybe we should start, maybe the way we should start is start small and say, okay, this is a system, this is how it's working. Let me give you another example, and this probably is the one that matters the most to me. There are the accounts for local government is never provided to the and I'd say every PNM and UNC to the Auditor General on time. So we have a situation where this is happening. Number one, local government says they don't get money. Number two, the government says they're giving them money. Right. I don't know who's telling the truth. But if the corporations filed as is required under the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, the annual reports to the Auditor General, who then lays it in Parliament, it lets the country and the people know exactly what is happening and whether it is true that is the government really squeezing certain corporations, or is there really a misrepresentation of funds? So maybe we need to begin there. Comply. I remember there was an issue that in a particular corporation that certain people, about 118 people, had to be fired because they said they had no money to pay them. So I took it upon myself and I said, okay, well, let's see. You can't just believe and buy cat and bag, as they say, randomly what's happening. So I went and I said, well, when was the last report laid so I can look at the accounts, the financial accounts for this particular corporation? And so lo and behold, 2018 was the last one when it was laid in Parliament, but that was for something like 2011. So it's given to them, and then it takes however long for the Auditor General to do it, and then it has to come and be laid in Parliament. So the accountability and transparency is not there. Everybody's left to do whatever they want, blame whoever they want. But there are systems in place that we can look at that. So maybe that's complying and working within the system that we have. And of course, like I say, train, do a handbook or train the people you're putting up to be councillors, so at least they know what their roles and responsibilities are. How many councillors in Trinidad can say that they know what the Municipal Corporation Act is, which governs their role and function?
Mm-hmm. So when one becomes a councillor, the interesting thing I find about politics is most of the time, and I think it's just the nature of politics globally too, you don't have to necessarily be skilled or versed in that particular field. I think on a councilman level, it's really a lot of time, it's people with a passion for their own areas, for their own towns, for their own neighborhoods that say, you know what, I know what's going on 10 blocks from me because I drive by that building every day. I drive through those potholes every day to get onto the highway. So
passion doesn't change lives. You need more than passion.
So no, I'm touching on the point where you talk about where we need to train councillors. What is the process now for becoming a councillor or council person?
Every individual party is going to have to tell you that for themselves. Nothing.
How would you choose? How would you? What in your mind would qualify someone to be a council person for their area?
The first thing you have to do is, I think as a party, if you are on the ground, you must speak to people who are there. And I agree that candidates for government should also begin by being chosen in this way, by speaking to the people who live in the particular area. Trust me, they're going to know more than you. Yeah. Trust me, they're going to have more information than you of what's going on the ground. Trust me, I have absolutely no doubt about that. You don't need any, I don't believe in having a big degree and masters and PhD. That's not what I'm talking about at all. Yeah. Of course, passion is a very important thing. But how you must know what your role and responsibility is. Yes. A teacher doesn't go and just decide to teach anything they want to teach when they go to school on Monday morning, do they? A teacher has a curriculum, a syllabus, and you have a curriculum within the syllabus, within the curriculum, that all these things work. So you're being guided. But again, because it's not taken seriously, none of this matters. Mm-hmm. That's where I say reconstructing, changing the way things done is what we intend to do. And not contesting on the general election is a small thing in comparison. In fact, when you do all of this and then contest, I think you'll find that you're in a much better place.
So is it safe to say that your work for the next 5 years will not and has not slowed, but your approach is what you are going to be ramping up in terms of reaching the electorate, reaching that person who feels they don't have a voice or they don't know how to use their voice. They don't know how to use their voice. Person.
Yes, of course. It's only work when you stop enjoying it.
I hear you.
It's only work when you stop enjoying it. For me, I think it's a beautiful challenge. It's what I know that, and the people who work with it is going to enjoy. Do you have to work harder? Always have to work harder. Mm-hmm. You always keep moving the bar so that you get better and better and better. And you have a 5-year period in which you must have no excuse for not have been everywhere in this country. It's 1.3 million people. Yeah. And be able to give people a voice. We have social media where we can connect with each other, listen to what they're saying. You can also do it physically. It's about empowering people. How many people in Trinidad don't know their rights? Something as simple as that.
95%. 95%. They don't even read it. Nobody reads the Constitution. I read the Constitution. The old Constitution they wrote it says I, we, me. The man wrote it as if it's a personal piece of interpretation he's dispensing when it should be the people's word. That whole constitution is a bunch of crap. And nobody
Yes.
since the days of inception up to this day have thought about getting rid and rewriting and putting the right strategies into it. If you read that constitution, you will see it has no basis for function in today's
In
society.
modern society. I
By the
agree.
way, give my great regards to Dad. Tell him this is
I
Jay.
will.
I
I
love
will. I
you.
will.
I love him,
Oh,
and I'm always there for you and for him.
thank you,
So
Jay.
now,
Thank
so
you.
now on your argument there that you said that this money is not being transferred to the corporation. So what's wrong with transparency? Why don't we take the money, show it to the people? Here it's deposited into that account. You see, one of the problem we have accountability in that. We
That's
don't
right.
hold people. We don't hold. They go in there for 5 years. They stay in the politics. They are bad from day one. They are corrupted from day one, and we have nothing in place to say after 2 years, like the United States have midterm elections. You are good for 4 years. You're good for 4 years here, but we have a midterm election. In 2 years, we're going to take you out because you're not functioning right. And that is what we need to have there. Why keep him on there for 5 years and pay him and take the taxpayers' money and feed those guys doing nothing absolutely for the people?
Yeah, accountability and transparency is a very, very, very big issue. And what is very interesting as well, Jay, is during this election period, no one is asking for it. No one is questioning it. We are so deeply entrenched and stuck within tribal and racial politics that once we have chosen a side, it don't matter what that side is doing.
I think the people have they cultured these people there. The people in Trinidad, you see, we are outside, so we read, we compare, we look, we have certain things. When I write all these articles, I have them published in the paper, and they get published. I said, why do you have a prime minister putting the date of the election in his back pocket? Why do we in the United States have it written in the Constitution on November, Thursday of November, we're going to have an election? Why do people keep those things hidden? And now he calls the election prematurely, which he's going to probably get beaten because Manning did it twice. Premature calling of the election. Why didn't he wait till November? There must be.
There must be a reason. First of all, I don't know why, if you feel hiding it in your back pocket, maybe they feel it gives somebody an advantage.
Yeah.
I don't know. Once you're working, you're supposed to be working for 5 years. So it doesn't matter to me if he feels somebody gets an advantage or they don't get an advantage. But yeah, this is just, that's how it works. They come and they pop it out. Hello, election.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get caught with your pants down? This kind of situation. So it's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, you need constitutional reform. And to do those, to make those kinds of changes. And there is no government who has come up with a constitutional majority who has tried to do it. And even without a constitutional majority, there is no opposition that is willing to give the government support for the constitutional majority. The reason this, in my belief, is this system works well for the two major parties.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of no other reason. The system works well for them. As it stands, tribal politics works well for them. Another party can come and get more votes and still not win a seat. It works. And this is, if you look at this, for me, my father has told me, the first election he fought was, and Jay would know, of course Jay is much younger, so Jay would have read about this. 1966 was the first election that he fought, and he's saying to me, this is one of the worst that he's seen in terms of the level of hatred. I don't know if you guys are seeing it, that's being spewed on social media. We have to live together on the 11th. We as a country have to live together. It's painful to watch.
I have advocated strongly that we must first understand that this country is built of browns and black ever since the inception on the days of slavery and indentureship. If we don't learn to live and stretch our hands to our friends on the other side, we are constantly going to live in separation and with division. And all my writings, I said I look for peace, harmony, and I look for friendliness with the other people. We cannot make our party look like we're an Indian party. That is completely wrong.
I can only speak for my party, which is the Patriotic Front, and that's why it's called the Patriotic Front, because we're patriots. We are Trinbagonians before we're anything else.
Yeah.
Before we're anything else. And when you look at life that we live here, we all basically want the same things. We all basically want the same things. It doesn't matter. But we have become divided. And like I say, we do live very happily. We don't have religious wars and racial wars and things like that outside of election. But during the election, you see that race rearing its ugly head. But I think it's also perpetuated by leaders. I am waiting to see one leader and I shall be doing it myself as I have done before, but within the race, say, stop this nonsense that you're doing and fighting each other. This is not the way we are supposed to be going. All of us want roads, water, electricity, shelter, a good job, employment, safety from crime and criminals, and from our families going missing. We all want to be able to go out to the beach and have a good time. We all want this. Does it matter what color we are? No. And that's why we said we're patriots. Trinidad and Tobago first, and a small country like this. But it's what we're seeing now and what we hope to be part of changing.
Remember your dad.
One of the things you said about, as you know, that ever so simple but ever so complex word, change. And you talked about how, you know, leaders perpetuate differences, divisiveness, and that sort of thing. What do you think is the Patriotic Party's primary mandate the next time you intend to go out to the public, not necessarily to campaign the election? What do you think is your most important mandate to get people to understand that premise that you're talking about? Trinidad.
You have to, first of all, listen to people. And I think this is where everything begins wrongly. Mm-hmm. We go out there and we start to talk to people. We don't listen to people. There are different people. Jay would have, Jamil, Kathy, Audrey, Naomi, Alphas, Kavita. We'll all, our friends here with us, all have different experiences which may have led or shaped the way that they feel and they think. And before we could talk reason and logic, you have to listen to people. They talk about no representation. How can you represent people if you don't know what they want? How can you represent people if they who are part of this wrongdoing or the ills of society, who are experiencing it on an everyday level, are not able to voice it? So that's the first thing. It's not campaigning, but it definitely is. Immediately, as soon as this election and all this nonsense is through, because I do not believe that there will be any difference in within the 5 years, regardless of who wins. But we are focusing on the eye of the bird and what we need to do, and what role we can play in representing people and listening to what are the issues that are affecting people. Even from a race point of view, even why are you voting tribal politics? Has anybody sat down and asked people, what are you so angry about? Have you had an experience of something? Different parts of the country might say different things, but how can you move past it unless you have a conversation? And as leaders and as a party, be willing to listen. How many meetings can you have and talk to people over and over and over? Yeah,
your mission statement will tell us what you are all about. And I will tell you, they continue to do tribal politics. And why are you attacking on a minor little thing as cheese and bread? These are petty stuff. You should not even answer those things as a contending person for. You're perpetuating it in blank and black and all those words. You should refrain insinuating it.
Well, Jay, what they're doing is, as I have said, it's tribal politics. tribal politics. So you are saying what you feel your group wants to hear. When as a leader, what you should be doing is leading the way and saying it doesn't matter. Now I understand tribal. I understand that Trinidad politics is picong. My father was a genius at that. So a lot of picong and fun and things like that. I accept that, but I think it has gone into a different hemisphere. I can't even describe it, what it is in Trinidad. And it almost is a level of anger and a level of hatred for each other. And sometimes I look on social media and I say, but we have to work together. We walk next to each other in the streets. We speak to each other. We travel in the same taxi with each other. When we go to the bank, we line up with each other. What madness is this that's going on? And I think it should be corrected. And very much like what Jay said, instead of the different silly words they're throwing about, and then you see when you start like that as a leader, what you expect the people who follow you to do. It's like a parent. Parents, you behave how your parent behaves. You conduct yourself the way your parent conducts themselves.
How do I, hearing what you're saying today, how should I approach, maybe not necessarily August the 10th, because it's upon us. You know, I'm really trying, I would love for people to walk away from today's discussion to understand, with everything that is going on, that they are not powerless in an election. You touched on a couple of wonderful things. Jay said a couple of things as well. You know, Jay, you mentioned things like, you said, you know, petty things like cheese and bread and whatnot. But here's how that works to some degree from what I have been made to understand. If you tell somebody who doesn't have bread and cheese, here is why you don't have bread and cheese, and here is how I could give you bread and cheese, minuscule to you.
I'm not sure that I know what that means myself. Jake, I don't know, maybe someone else.
The media had printed that he made a statement.
Somebody said cheese head or something. Whatever.
Yeah, cheese head.
I don't even know what that even means.
That has no relevance, absolutely. Right. And the opposition leader should not even go close to that, because it's drawing us down the drain.
But my friend, if you're not talking policy and had nothing else to say, you talk about cheese and blank
yeah,
cheese.
Blanks and cheese. Why use blank? That word insinuates some things. Refrain from it. She's a lawyer. Refrain from it.
You can't change the way people, you know, guys, I don't know if you've seen, Finland has just voted in the youngest prime minister. I believe she's 30.
Jacinta?
No, Finland as well, but Jacinta is from New Zealand.
New Zealand.
We've got Finland just came in, and right. Maybe young people in politics, not as what do you call it, window dressing, but young people in politics who view the world in a different way, may make that change by letting their voices be heard in a different way. And because this kind of picong and the race and tribal thing that we've been seeing, we're seeing that forever. But who is that, if you think about it in a rational way, who is that encouraging to vote? The undecided? No. Who is that? People who want to listen what's going to go in the country. We're not even post-COVID. We're in COVID. It looks like we're now going to be suffering from it. How are we going to deal with the issues of jobs? And it goes beyond saying, I'm going to get 50,000 jobs. From where? We have to talk about investment, how we're going to diversify. Tobago is going to be going through some pressure because we know what's now going on in the tourism industry. When we talk about agriculture, let's talk about it in a modern way. Let's talk about hydroponics and aquaponics. Not we're going to reopen Caroni, or we don't have enough land. It's just about bringing a new vibe and dimension to it. That I know both Dr. Rowley and Mrs. Bissess, and I don't blame them. Perhaps what has happened for being the way they are, but they are stuck in that time warp, and perhaps it's time to move on.
Emil said, you know, there's a lack of social awareness, and that contributes to the undertone of racism.
social awareness, as in, could you explain it to me a bit better?
I believe he's talking about, you know, being aware, like it comes back to what you said earlier, and we had this discussion before as well. And I really find it interesting when you talk about, you know, people need to know their council person. They need to know what their role is.
Oh,
you know,
I understand. I understand what he's saying.
You need to be aware. But if I am living in a part of the country and I am not necessarily interested or exposed, how do I put away my disenchantment and really start paying attention to what's going on? Because we are asking,
you know, you can't force, but you can't force everybody. There are going to be people in life who will never like politics, who never want to be part of politics.
Right.
But because politics has a very negative and horrible connotation to the word itself, even though it's a beautiful thing and it affects absolutely everything. But I mean, there must be a level of social responsibility that we must take upon ourselves. And we must say, listen, I don't like how this is going. I don't want to go up for any seats. I don't want to this. But let me see, how is this? How do we get more involved? I wonder, simple things. There's so many different little social services, especially for the elderly, because people say, how do you get involved? So we have, for example, if someone, the roof has blown off or they need repairs done to their home, or there's a funeral, there's a little grant, there's a little this. Find out as a young person for yourself. Start even within your little community, and just knowing we do not have to go to a library and we do not have to go into a government building to get information anymore. We can sit down in our homes and have a look. We can inform ourselves. And we must, at some stage, say, listen, we've had enough. We've had enough. I have a lot of people who have gotten involved with our party who say that they never thought they'd be involved in politics. But this is not politics in the way that politics is seen. Or these politicians, and they corrupt, and they this, and they only for themselves, and when they go, they forget. Well, then you get involved and you be the change that you want to see. You have to take a level of social responsibility. How can I continuously go and preach to you? Now, I do also feel where our job comes in is if you're genuinely willing to offer people something different.
Yeah.
And not reinvent the wheel, but to do things proper. How you're going to manage things properly. Show people that you're willing to be accountable, that you're willing to be transparent. They will stop and listen, because it's very hard for people to take it upon themselves to get involved now because of the level of disenchantment and the level of hopelessness that they feel. It's easy for us who are sitting here today on this conversation because we're interested. I think if people see something different, if people see that things are being done differently, I think that they will stop and take notice and they will come forward, which I am very grateful to say has been happening to us. Many people, many people who would never have thought about politics. But politics in the way you're getting involved in something different in how we do things, how we relate to people. And we've got time to do it. And I hope you all will be part of it.
But even though you're not a politician per se, I live up in the United States. I devote all my time reading all the papers. I don't even vote there. I am not eligible to vote. I raise money. I raise funds. What is my interest in doing that is to promote the welfare of a country where it was my native place. And to see that things are done properly. I write so many articles, have them published. Why don't you hold people accountable? You're going to devote $7 million, $1 billion to a certain part, a certain sector. And at the end of the 5 years, you don't bring me an accounting sheet to tell me every year where you spend my money. Then you go back in election, the next party goes the same strategy. 7 million for him, 7 million, 7 billion here. But no accountability, none. We should hold them accountable. Where is the money being distributed? Why we still have the potholes and you give them $7 billion? I need to know every month, perhaps every quarter. Bring me an accounting sheet, set up an accounting department. I want to see every representative that I appointed to work for the people are showing me a statement. At the end of the year, I spend so many of your money, and so much is the work accomplished. I need to see the work accomplished.
But we have those things in place, Jade. Now we're going to a different thing where there's management and the people who are supposed to be doing what they're supposed to do it, not doing it because they're part of the problem and not the solution. This is the problem you have. I'm saying to you, the budget is giving certain, okay, you're giving this corporation all these different things. We have an auditor general. It is a position that is created under the constitution in which you have to give your reports to.
Right.
What happens when they don't? I've been trying to find out that since I was in parliament. Nothing.
But that report is supposed.
Repercussions.
That report was supposed to be given to him by July 31st, according to the Constitution.
Right? So they give it to him, so they give the accounts, right? So every little thing, every last cent, you're supposed to be able to give, and these are my accounts. They then put it together into the report. Nobody does it. 10 years passing, nothing. So who is telling the truth? Are you getting the money? As the government is saying, or are you not getting the money? Or are you not getting the money and the government is telling the untruth? Or, you know, Trinidad is not a backward place, you know. We have extremely advanced laws. None are simply enforced. We have good systems in place. Of course, a lot of things have to change, as in everything. As in everything. Everything can be improved and changed. But you see, the people that you're putting there, I don't know if they've been there too long or what you're bringing to the table. Okay, if you were a voter in Trinidad and Tobago and you said, listen, I'm 18 years old, or I'm 38 years old, I've never voted before. Look at what you have to listen to. Holistic policy. Where is it? What you're voting for? So you know that when you, on the 11th, that regardless of who's there, nothing is going to change. And you know you're not going to see your representative, and you know that you're not going to do this, and you know that this time that they were coming and asking you for your vote, if you wave to them, they put up the window. You know these things are going to happen. That's the reality of the politics today. We're there to change it.
Mikela, we see about 10, I could be wrong on the actual amount, but when I checked, I was told that there are about 10 political groups right now in Trinidad and Tobago.
More than that.
Do you think that that helps or hurts a country the size of Trinidad and Tobago?
I think everybody has the right to form a political party, number one. That's what a democracy is about. Let's look at it from this point of view instead. When people, look at it from our culture. When people go and they vote for a party, it could be wrong this election, I don't know. But my own view is, you don't vote for an independent and you don't vote for a party simply feeling 7 seat, 1 seat, 20 seat. And the reason I say so is, you vote for somebody to see them in government. And if you're voting for somebody who doesn't have the chance, a party to get into government, people tend not to want to vote.
Yeah.
Of course, you have the first past the post system, very much like Britain, and that is which you can get very many votes, but if it's not clustered within particular areas, you may not get a seat. So, I mean, that's why people talk about electoral reform and different things like that. I don't think political parties being formed, however many, can ever hurt democracy.
I agree.
I really don't. I really don't. I mean, form them away. I think enjoy, have a voice, go talk to people. The more the merrier. I don't see anything wrong with that at all.
Do you think electoral reform is something, given the size of the country, we're 1.3 million people. So I tend to think sometimes when I hear people say, you know, it's an easier process, endure. That's their words, endure. You know, do you think electoral reform should come about to allow for first past the post primarily and give those seats to those people? Or do you think as it is now, that just needs to be fixed because it's not operating at its optimum.
I think first past the post is not a bad system at all. I think, however, it has perpetuated and or helped tribal politics along the way.
Right.
But you see, I don't ever view things like, oh, let's get rid of it or not. You can have first past the post with a little bit of proportional representation if you so wish. You can have a little bit of alternative vote. You can, but this is what it is. It's about sitting, and we had constitutional reform people coming and discuss consultations. I wasted my time 3 times and I didn't learn and then I learned my lesson. What is that about? How is it going to work the best for the country? Which one works the best for the country? I don't have a particular answer. I think it could do all kinds of things. We could have all different forms. We could be the trendsetters and do what we want. That is, we can make a beautiful form of voting that allows everyone to have their voice and allows everyone to be able to be in the parliament. If you work hard.
Yes. And you talked about a new vision of how to interact in politics, and you talked about the role and participation of younger people, because of course their eyes are fresher, their views are different. Do you think that young people right now are being kind of stayed away from it? Because I've been seeing a lot of younger people participating on a local level, going around visiting communities, talking to people. How important do you think it is for the Patriotic Party to reach young people and educate them from now, so that by the time they get into those seats, the view is different and the view is more innovative?
Well, picture it this way: somebody who is 13 in the next 5 years is going to be 18 and able to vote. So I think it's very important. I think it's very important to reach out to young people on all levels, but to listen also to their concerns. You see, when people think about getting involved in politics, for some reason they believe, I have to go up for a seat, or I have to go up. That's not what all politics is about. As Jay was also saying, he says, I'm not a politician. There's so many other things that you can do. You know, charity, without thinking in the way that we think of politics, is a form of politics. It's a way that you deal. It affects politics affects everything. I used to tell people, every time you complain, you know, in London there's this joke. The pubs in London close at a certain time. And it doesn't matter what happens, the pubs close, and people are always complaining, oh, you know, it's not good for tourism, and it's not, oh, I want to stay out a bit longer. But they don't like politics. Well, that is important. If you wanted to open of how we have to live our lives. So everything is politics. It's important for young people because the education system, the curriculums, how we treat with young people, and our education system, which is failing young people terribly, is about politics. Everything is politics. And I think everybody in Trinidad and Tobago, all 1.3, 1.4 billion people, have a part to play. Absolutely. However small or big that may be.
When did you know you wanted to get involved in politics?
Well, it's not something you wake up and do, I'll tell you that. You don't kind of say, I want to get involved. It's what I've known. It's what I've known and been exposed to. So I have three sisters. So it's not just me. And the other 3 despise, if I'm allowed to use that word, politics. What? Yeah. Can't even talk about it. But it was something that I'd liked from a very, very young age.
What did they say to you when you told them that? When you said, you know, I think.
I mean, listen. Your family supports you whatever you do. They always support you. Mama isn't the happiest. Yeah, she wasn't the happiest. Supports me 100%. But she's seen, like many people, you see the dark
fallout
side of politics and but with that, like in any job that you do, you have the good, you have the bad, but the ability to change people's lives in the simplest of ways, just to improve their lives. And I saw how possible it is. It's hard work. Yeah. Of course, it's hard work, but it matters. It matters to me. I feel from a very young age also how you're brought up. If you're brought up to feel a sense of social consciousness, if that makes sense, thinking of somebody else, whether it be your neighbor, whether it be your granny, whether it be another student in school or something like that. I don't think you wake up and say, I want to be a politician. I think the ones who do that are the ones that shouldn't do it. Because they're doing it for the wrong reason.
I hear you. You know, in the Broadway musical Evita and subsequent reproduction on film, there's a line in it that stays with me to this day, and it's politics is the art of the possible.
That is nice.
Yeah.
That is nice.
Every
That's
time
correct.
I look at political related items, I always remember that, because, you know, there are people on the ground who believe very firmly and strongly, and of course they tend to not have that exposure and voice because it's not the popular or more attractive role to take on. What do you think needs to be done to have politicians remain grounded enough so that comes first?
Hold on. Wait, let me find my what's it called? Crystal ball. It shall give me the answer. Ask it again. Let me see if I can. To keep politicians grounded.
How do we keep politicians grounded to understand the true nature of what they've undertaken?
You know, that's what I say. You don't want to become a politician. Yeah. It is a way of life almost. It's 7 days a week. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't stop thinking politics. It doesn't stop all of a sudden like you have a 9-to-5 job. And I don't think you should get involved if you don't know that level of sacrifice that is required. Now, it's easier perhaps for me to say, I've seen my father. My father became leader of the opposition in 1976. And that was a year before I was born. I see Raquel.
What's on my calculator?
But you know, so, and you see the level of sacrifice. You see, people say, that means on top of everything else, no birthdays.
Yeah.
That means no wedding anniversary. Or of course you don't. Country before self means that is what you think, and you are almost trained in a way.
Yeah.
And that's to think like that. Now I have seen that, so to me that is sort of kind of natural, you know. Doesn't mean it stops you from being a good parent. I have always said my father may not have been physically there, but he was emotionally there for all his girls, and we knew that we could turn upon him, turn to him for anything, and he'd be there. So you have to understand it's a balancing act, whether you're a man or a woman. It takes a lot of sacrifice, but if you love your country enough, and if you want to do it enough, the sacrifice is going to be worth it. And of course, I always say, do not ask for thanks. Jay's going to know this. Do not ask for thanks, because it is the most thankless job that there is. not only financially, but on an emotional basis as well. But that's not the reason you should be doing it in the first place. And I say that to everybody with joining with the Patriotic Front. I said, listen, you're seeing all the glory. Oh gosh, I get to go here. I get to fly here. I get to do this. Oh, this is so nice. That is but an iota of it. If you're really willing to go out there and to work, it is a lot of sacrifice, a lot. But then again, I want to end where I started. It only becomes work when you stop enjoying it.
You know, David Rudder said it. He said it. He sang it when he says, "How we vote is not how we party." And initially, I thought that line meant one thing. That line has 3 different layers to me. When we talk about politics in the country, and it's such a simple line, it's so interesting. You know, Mikela, I know that you've taken some time out of your 28-hour days to be with us here on Sunday. And
I'm so happy though. I'm happy.
I appreciate the sacrifice so much. I want to thank everyone.
This wasn't sacrifice. This was fun, and I get to see Jay.
Give my regards to that. Give my regards to
that.
You will continue talking.
But I have to.
Jay, thanks for joining us.
I wanted to say.
Yes.
Yeah, and everybody, Alphaz, Kavita, JCP, Kathy, Jamil, Aldrich, Naomi.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say thank you for thinking about us and for inviting us. And thank you.
Like I said, I'm
giving me the opportunity.
I hope we can do it again.
Life, you must be.
Definitely.
I always say in life you must be very thankful, and don't forget to say thank you for the opportunities that are created for you in a very difficult time. So thank you very much.
I really, really appreciate you explaining to people how it's okay to not aspire to be there, but it's okay to aspire to help get there. Thank you so much for that message. You know, I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for
joining. Give my regards to Dad, and give my regards to Uma.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. It's hot, so hydrate.
and thank you. The internet was good to us, so thank you.
It was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Okay. Bye. Bye.